Special guest Kevin Kreider today, and good to have both of them in here. And good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Can't beat the weather, can we?
This is crazy. It's great.
December.
But get ready. It always averages out. Okay, so
It does.
So if you've got things that need to be done to be ready for cold weather, you better be getting them done here while it's nice. Because somewhere along the line it'll hit. It did last year. We had a nice easy winter, and then February got us, and it was pretty rough there for a while. But that's all right. It's beautiful. Beautiful time to be living in Dent County, isn't it?
It seems like our winter season that used to start like right after Thanksgiving has gotten pushed back a little bit, and now lasting more into late January through February and then early March than it used to be.
But anyway, great time, and we do have a special guest.
Yes, we do.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, we do. Special guest. So, Kevin, remember that. Special.
I don't know if I would use that term, but
Yeah.
I'll let you go with that.
Yep. Well, anyway, folks have heard me talk about, and Stan, we've talked about it a lot on the radio. We've talked about it a lot in our commission meetings. The growing problem over the last several years with feral hogs, particularly here in southern Missouri and down in the Ozark region. Dent County, we've been pretty lucky compared to some counties. The feral hogs in Dent County are probably more in the southern part of the county and the eastern part of the county, and but we don't want any feral hogs is the motto and is what we're after here. But at any rate, the University Extension has hired a new person to work on this issue, and this is a cooperative effort, as I understand it, with the Missouri Department of Conservation in funding somebody, and I think it's a 3-year program, if I'm not mistaken. But
That is correct.
Yep, to work on this feral hog program, and they've just hired a new man, and I'm going to introduce him here, and it's Kevin Crider, and he's moved here from Colorado, but has roots right here and grew up in Shannon County, south of us, and so has been in law enforcement, park service, been working as a trapper for feral hogs for a year or so, and so he's working for University Extension based out of Dent County here. And I'll get into some of that maybe, but I let the Conservation Department Deputy Director know back earlier here in the winter that we would welcome such a position here. They ran into problems, another county wanting to, as far as staffing and extension and being able to do this. So we were tickled to be able to say we'd love to have somebody here work on this, and they could cover several counties where this is a problem. And so, Kevin Kreider, welcome to Dent County, and tickled to death to have you. So just tell a little bit about yourself and what you've done and where you grew up, what you do and what you've done and what you're going to try to do.
Yeah, thanks so much, Darrell. Glad to be here and glad to be in Dent County. Like you said, I've been here for about, year and a half or so, and as you mentioned, I grew up in Birch Tree, Shannon County area. And then after school, I went out to Colorado and was with the National Park Service. Then I switched over to the Colorado State Patrol and did a career out there with those folks. And then came back here. I was missing the Ozarks, so I came back home, and my wife and I live here in Salem now. But picked up that job last year as a feral hog trapper for the Department of Conservation, and really enjoyed the job, and then had an opportunity to move over to MU Extension as an outreach educator for them, and I've just recently started this position. And basically what I'm doing here with outreach is just trying to help folks get the help they need, and that means if they need a trapper, then they can call me, and I'll make the right phone call to the right person to get somebody out there to help them with their land management issues on these feral hogs and get those things trapped and get them out of here. We've also got a program with USDA, one of our partners in the partnership that we have with several agencies, and they're actually going to bring in some aerial operations this winter. That's going to be starting up here right away, and that's going to be another great tool to get these feral hogs eliminated. So right now, that's the big thing coming up is the actual aerial operations segment of it. Now, doesn't mean everybody that wants aerial operations is going to get it, but we're trying to get as many folks that need help with that aerial operations component the help that they can get if possible. We're going to have different places that the helicopters are going to be flying, and that'll start next week, I believe, over east of here around Tom Sauk, and that'll move kind of west and then back north with the different areas they're going to cover. And we've got a whole list of folks that would like that assistance, so we're glad to help. And any questions I can answer from anybody, just have them make sure they contact me and let me know what I can do to help them.
And your contact information is?
Yep, my telephone number is 573-301-5971. And I'm also out of the Extension office here in Salem, so if they're in town, they can stop by and leave a message for me here, and I'll get in contact with them that way as well.
And that's extension number 3196?
It is.
729-3196.
Yep.
So 573-301-5971 will go direct to you.
That's direct to me. Yep.
So if you don't answer, you'll get a message, and you'll get back and go to work on it.
Yep.
You've had several people, as I understand, and I've talked to some folks here just the last day or two, that I've actually have signed up to. They want help. They've got hogs.
Yes.
They want help, and they're anxious to help address this problem.
We've had some great relationships established when I was working as a trapper, and then of course since I've started my new position that have developed, and a lot of folks are really, I guess I would use the word, glad to have the help. Because we're obviously glad to go out and help people any way we can. But we've got some great relationships that have been created from this partnership, and the landowners that I've worked with are obviously looking to get the assistance they can get. And if you really look at the nuts and bolts of this, these are taxpayer dollars that are funding this. So this is a service that's out there for folks that you've basically already paid for.
Yep.
And there's no reason not to take us up on it, because we're here to offer that assistance if folks want it.
And those are taxpayer dollars coming that have already gone to Department of Agriculture. They're allocating these dollars back to try to address.
Correct.
Same way with MDC. These
Correct.
are taxpayer dollars. Your 1/8 cent tax. But for folks that are listening, I mean, I've had people kind of a little quizzical about well, why is this feral hog thing? I mean, most folks have probably never ever seen a feral hog and don't really understand the impact and what those things can do. And if you're a landowner that's got them, you understand and know really well. But people got to understand the impact of these things on it. They can totally destroy a hayfield overnight.
Yeah.
Isn't that right?
And that's exactly right, Darrell. The thing that I've seen time and time again, and other trappers have seen this too, you go out to a property for the first time and you look at it and you think that a tractor and a disc has gone through the field on some of these properties. That's how many hogs are out there and how deep they've rooted. It looks like a disc went through it. And unless you've seen it or have heard folks talk about it, it's hard to imagine until you actually have seen what happens with these hogs and when they start rooting into a hayfield and causing that kind of damage.
And they'll take a field where a farmer or a rancher is ordinarily selling thousands of dollars worth of hay a year off of a field, and they've got to completely disc it, smooth it down, and try to reseed it. And the problem is, if them hogs are still there, that's a wasted effort even in itself, because they'll be right back rooting. And people just don't understand what a hog does. They root, and they root deep. They're after the grubs and all the various stuff that they find in there, and that's just what they do.
Yeah, and my experience as a trapper, what I would typically see is summertime, maybe not as much, because they've got plenty of other food sources out there, so you don't see as much rooting in the fields or in the timber quite a bit. They do still come out in the field some, but not nearly as much as during this time of year. Once the food sources start to leave the actual woodlands, we see more and more rooting happening in the fields. In fact, I had a property out near Boss. Didn't see many hogs at all summer long. I knew they were in the area, but they weren't really affecting the fields. As soon as the weather started to cool off, we had that first frost, they started hitting the fields. Now we've got rooting in significant areas all over that property. So winter time comes, fall comes, hogs start hitting those fields more and more.
And the impact, they have a great impact on the various wildlife.
They're a competition species. I mean, obviously they're an ungulate, they're a hoofed animal like a deer, and they're going to be eating acorns and a lot of the same things that a deer is going to browse for. So you're going to have a competition with that. And then, of course, if they come across, turkey eggs and stuff like that in the spring, they're going to eat that as well, because they're going to be omnivorous.
They'll eat about anything that can't get away from them.
Everybody knows, a hog will eat pretty much anything you put in front of it. So that's definitely a concern too, because it's a competition species with the other wildlife that's out there. So
I worked for a farmer years ago, and they had a lot of hogs, and we'd feed the hogs corn, the sows that were waiting for gestating. And we'd just throw corn over the fence to them and they'd eat. And in the winter, the turkeys would come up and gather around and be up there close and get him. And so every once in a while, you'd see all of a sudden an old sow would have feathers hanging out of her mouth, and an old turkey had gotten too close.
A little bit of predation.
And they'd eat a turkey. I mean, they will absolutely eat anything just about that doesn't eat it first.
They can be omnivorous. Normally, they're not going to be much more on the carnivore side, but they are omnivorous. They'll eat an animal if they get an opportunity, or primarily it's going to be vegetation. But it's and stuff like the grubs and so forth, worms in the ground. But they are omnivorous animals.
So Kevin, you did trapping with MDC before this, and so can you explain what the process is and how long this takes the process to get started? Because a lot of people think, they'll just send a trapper out there, within a couple of weeks they'll be done. That's not the case.
Not necessarily the case. No, you're exactly right. Typically, a normal scenario would be we get contacted by a landowner, we go out to the property, and evaluate where to put a bait site based on the sign that we see on the ground. And we start baiting. We'll put a camera out with bait, and then from that point, once we get hogs on camera coming to bait, we pattern them, get them used to coming to bait. Once we do that, then we throw a trap up, and then we leave the trap sit for a few days to let them get accustomed to the trap. And then once they start coming into the trap to eat the bait, then
people need to understand hogs are very smart.
Yeah, we do have hogs that get trap shy. They've been part of their sounder may have been trapped before, and they saw those other hogs get trapped, and they didn't get trapped, or they walk up to a trap that's got hogs in it, and they're like, "Hey, how'd you get in there?" And I'm out here. They figure that out pretty quickly. And then you'll see hogs on the camera walk around a trap that's baited, but they won't go inside of it. Then we call them trap shy because they've probably seen other hogs get caught, and then they won't come into the trap, or they'll avoid the trigger mechanism. They'll avoid the tripwire. I've seen them do it all. It's amazing what these animals will recognize for being a danger inside those traps and around those traps. Yeah. But anyway, that's basically the process as far as the baiting setup, getting them patterned, and then actually getting the trap ready to trigger and then catch them.
So this time period could be months.
Potentially, depending on the time of year and how active and reactive they are to bait. Because sometimes they, like in the summer, this summer was really slow. Didn't have a lot of hogs liking the corn, soured corn, whatever I throw out there, actual sweet stuff. You could put pretty much anything, like Darrell had talked about, anything out there that they would like to eat, no matter what it might be. And they sometimes won't even come into it. They'll just ignore it because they're busy with other stuff that they are browsing out in the forest.
As long as there's a food source available, yours isn't all that attractive, is it?
Well, so we're always testing new things to see what we can get them to come into.
And in summer, there's a lot of food sources growing all through the out in the country. But now this year is probably going to be where you mentioned this time of year they're out in the fields more, and I can see. I think, and I don't know if it's everywhere. You probably know better than I do, but I know in my area and a lot of areas, the very poor acorn crop this year, and hogs love acorns. I mean, years ago, farmers they'd run the hogs and let them almost open range, especially in the fall, going out and just eating and getting fat on acorns.
Right.
Now they're deadly. I mean, they're bad for cattle, not necessarily deadly, but in some cases can be. But hogs do really well on acorns. But this time of year, especially once the acorns are gone, or a year when you don't have many acorns, then you have even more showing up looking for those other food sources in the fields and things.
Yeah, I totally agree. As an outdoorsman, I can tell you, if you see deer out in the fields more because there's no acorns, you can pretty much plan on the hog's going to be out there too. But they're going to do the damage, obviously, a deer was not going to do. But you start seeing the deer out in the fields in the middle of the day, you're like, I guess there's a poor acorn crop this year. And then, of course, if there's hogs in this area, you probably plan on there's going to be hog damage in that field at some point if they're in the area.
How many hogs average are taken in a once you're able to trap them? About how many do you get per trapping?
Well, that's a great question, because when we started the Feral Hog Partnership a few years ago, we were getting large groups. I've heard of as many as 40 plus in one trap. The most I've seen in a trap that I was working on was over 20. But even in the year and a half that I was with MDC, my numbers went down significantly as we started making progress on the winter and summer operations, and then doing the actual trapping of the individual permanent employees like myself. And now those numbers before I left MDC were down to 6 to 10 in a trap, whereas we were getting 20 to 40 in a trap at a time, 40 being the high. But now the numbers, from what I'm still hearing from folks that are still trapping, their numbers are usually less than 10 in a trap when they catch some.
So are they associating this with the intelligence of the hog, that they're reading these traps better?
No.
Or there's less hogs in that area?
Less hogs in the area, because what we're tying this back to, the data, is that we're getting less landowner calls for service. We're having less and less people say, hey, I've got damage out here. Not to say that it's not out there. It is out there. But there's less of those interactions where people are saying, we have hogs. We need to get them out of here. We've got it going on, but it's not to the level it was, say, a year ago.
So the repopulation rate of hogs, though, is so high that if you miss a season, they'll be right back at full strength, won't they?
And that's another tangent I wanted to explore just for a second, go down this rabbit trail for a minute. This is why we love to get landowners to get on board with this, because if you have just a few landowners that have large properties that don't take care of their hog problem or don't want assistance, that could lead to, if they don't get assistance or they don't manage their hog issue, you could potentially have sounder in that property that just continues to grow, and then that's going to move on out into other surrounding properties, and the next thing you know, you've eliminated hogs around those properties, but now they're going to come right back because the other properties that didn't take care of the hog issue now have more hogs than what we even got rid of in the first place. So,
and a lot of people don't realize how fast they reproduce. A sow that has a litter in early spring or whatever, she'll have another litter later in the year too. 6, 8, 10 pigs to the litter, and then actually some of the females from the first litters in the year will be old enough to be reproducing by the end of the year.
Right.
So they're having litters, and it's just they can reproduce. Oh man, it's
and
incredible.
I'll throw these numbers out too, just for reference. In 2019, we eliminated over 10,000 hogs in Missouri with the Feral Hog Partnership. In 2020, we eliminated over 12,000. This year, we're on track to eliminate probably just over 9,000. So the number is coming down this year, but guess what? If we don't continue this, next year we could be right back up to those same numbers we had last year. So that's why this is so imperative that we continue these efforts and try to deal with this head on so we don't get behind. Because right now it looks like we're making progress.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the overall goal is total eradication of feral hogs in Missouri. That's a pretty ambitious goal.
Yes.
I don't think any state yet has ever been successful in eradicating their hogs.
No. I mean, they're a survivor. I mean, as we all know, hogs are a survivor species, and it's going to take a lot. But at least we can do the best we can to try to eradicate those we can come in contact with. But again, I think it's going to take all of us. It's going to be the partnership plus landowners together. And the public lands aspect, obviously, we're working that too. But, you know, the landowners, I think, is such a key to this because the more landowners we can get involved and get those trappers on their properties and the aerial operations, I think that's going to really tell us kind of where we're going to go.
Now, you mentioned that overnight you can see this change happening. Are the hogs mostly nocturnal when they come and enter a property and then leave? Is that usually when they come?
Yeah, they're not going to be moving around too much during the day. They'll move a little bit, but definitely nocturnal is when they're going to be the most active.
Yeah,
and
so
especially when it's hot.
So even when you're in the air looking down, you're not going to see a lot of hogs moving around that you're going to be able to identify that as a location.
Right.
You may see a few or one or two, but you just don't know.
Yeah, the helicopter with all the noise it makes will get them moving. They're right at treetop level when they're flying around, and that's going to be what disturbs them and starts them moving around. And then, of course, they're going to try to push them to an open area for those shots that they're going to take at the animals. But that's typically what's going to move them is just the helicopter with all the commotion that's it's causing. Yeah.
But they'll never be too far from a water source.
Correct.
They got to drink just like we do.
Yep. Water's a big issue for them. Wallows in the summertime, especially ponds, are always something we look for when we were trapping. Water sources, and then of course shade in the summer too. You know, they like to stay in the forest in the canopy cover and brush. And then, of course, at night they'll come out to those open areas is typically what we would see.
So a question that actually somebody asked me out and about, and I hadn't really thought about it, but, we have the beautiful Ozark Trail that a lot of people like to walk. And this time of year, right before when all the colors were changing, it was absolutely fantastic. But people are not taking it because they're getting afraid of feral hogs. Because they've been told, if you happen to come across a feral hog and maybe it's piglets, you're going to be in trouble because mama they don't care. They'll take you down. Is that a true concern, or is that just something that maybe somebody kind of blew out of proportion maybe?
That's a good question. It's always going to be a possibility. I mean, you have to consider a possibility, the what if you run into something like that. My experience trapping, when they're trapped, when I pulled up to a trap and there's a big boar in it or a big sow, typically what they're trying to do is go to the other side of the trap and get out and go away from me. They didn't want anything to do with me. When I showed up at the trap, they're trying to get away if I actually am on top of the trap. Now, a lot of times we try to shoot from a little bit of distance so they don't even know I'm there if it's just a few pigs in a trap. But if I walked up to a trap the few times I have, the pig is out the other side of the trap trying to get out. So to say what they would do out in the wild if you encountered one, I mean, obviously it is a possibility, but I haven't personally experienced that. I've heard stories about people that have had those circumstances where they come across a sow with a litter of piglets or even a big boar, but I have never seen it myself. But you have to consider it could happen.
So you need to be prepared just in case.
Potentially, yeah.
Yeah. So is there a strategy? Do you stand still?
Well, no, I mean,
climb a tree if you can. They can't climb a
that's
tree.
really the best advice you could probably use if you get right into that situation. That's going to be your only thing. If they do come after you, try to get up a tree and get away from them, because obviously if they get you on the ground, that's where things are going to have a problem. But again, I think you have to look at the actual encounters if they've ever happened. I don't think they're going to be enough you can even really say, hey, this happens frequently or infrequently. When I worked for the National Park Service, we always talked about bear encounters, out in Rocky Mountain National Park, and I think you have to kind of compare it to stuff like that, an animal that could become predatory or be aggressive towards you. It just doesn't happen often enough to really speak to it. But obviously, if you encounter that situation, you have to be thinking ahead, like, hey, can I get up this tree if it does come after me? Or if you have a firearm with you. I mean, those are things you have to just consider as a what if.
Well, I know I mean, these hogs are hogs. And of course, these are wild. And but I mean, I've dealt with hogs a lot, raising hogs and different things. I know Mama Sal with a litter. If she's got a fresh litter, she's going to defend that litter pretty vigorously. Yeah. But you're gonna probably have to be really straying off the trail badly to stumble upon a sow. I mean, they'll find an isolated spot and make a nest, and you're not going to just stumble on one unless you really. Now, I mean, a turkey hunting could very well stumble upon one, because you're not really on trails and you're out there and stuff. Yeah. But with a fresh litter, once them little pigs get much bigger, though, that old sow and them pigs are going to scatter like flies and take off, and that's not going to be now an old cantankerous old boar. Who knows, anything goes, but he's not going to necessarily be looking. His first deal is try to get away and take off, and that's probably not a big deal. But they had a deal. I read a deal where a bunch of hogs were in a yard down in Texas here a few years ago, and they said, I think it was an elderly homeowner that went out there and they ended up killing a lady.
I heard about that one. Yeah, and there are those stories out there. I think there are fewer than more, but
a lot of stories.
Yeah, a lot of stories. Nothing I've confirmed, but and it is an unpredictable animal. You don't know for sure, but just from my experience of working with them around traps, every time I would show up at a trap, if it was something where I was walking up to the trap, they were trying to go to the other side. I never had one running at the trap to get to me, but I will say that I did talk to another trapper locally, where he did have one that he thought he had killed and was in the trap getting ready to remove it from the trap, and it wasn't dead. And so it got up while he's in the trap with him. Talk about trying to get out of that trap quick.
That's right. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Now it's defend myself.
Yeah, now things have changed. That circumstance is a little different, obviously, because now you're in that enclosed area with it, but and it's wounded. But
I would say 99% of the hikers would never have a problem, but they take little children. Little kids like to run. If they see a hog, a hog, I'm going to chase it. Probably not a good idea.
No.
So I think it's up to the hikers to educate their children. Be on the lookout for the different things like this. I don't think they're really thinking, because down at Echo Bluff State Park, the horses come out now and they come right up to the campers. They know they're going to get fed and everybody's going to love on them. Yeah. They love it. Yeah. But I'm not sure they would love a feral hog coming up to a camper. But I'm just saying, I think sometimes we get comfortable in the situation where we think, oh, there's no danger here, but there still is a danger, and that's what I get worried about with little kids, because they don't know that is a potential hazard.
Don't go chasing after a bear, and don't go chasing after a hog.
Right. Yeah. Good advice.
Yeah, it's not a good idea.
One thing I thought I'd mention too, we always get a lot of questions. I know I talked with another radio station up north recently, and one of the questions we had was about the processing of a hog. And obviously on public grounds we can't do that, just because there's a lot of disease issues with brucellosis, technosporosis, leptospirosis, a lot of the same things that some of the livestock could get on the pork side. Now on private landowners, if they want to keep a hog, that's up to the private landowner, but we don't recommend processing it, but that's definitely a call that the landowner can make if it's on their property. So that's one thing I thought we should probably bring up, because there's always a lot of questions about, well, do you use the meat? Can you give it to somebody? Well, like I said, private landowners can, but public ground we can't do anything with.
And many private landowners do, I understand.
Yes.
Have some processed and frozen.
Yep, and that's completely up to them.
And it's fine.
So the meat that's not used, is it just did you just how'd you get rid of it?
Yeah, public ground especially. We'll pretty much take them to a place away from any watersheds, any drainages, any ponds. Make sure they're not near any water sources, and leave them lay. And they'll be scavenged by coyotes and bears and raccoons and possums. And it's part of the ecosystem. Other animals will get fed from those dead hogs that are out there in the landscape. We just make sure we move them away from any kind of drainages where water can take any of that.
Take it all downstream.
Yeah, we don't want it to end up in water sources. So.
But you mentioned the disease part. People raising hogs, they're vaccinated all the time for the various diseases and different things, and it's controlled. But these feral hogs are a whole different deal, and they actually carry a whole lot of various diseases, and then they act as vectors or spread for the other wildlife, deer, but to also spread the various diseases in the domesticated livestock, cattle, and so forth.
Sure.
And that's another problem of having them out there.
Yeah. That potential of them spreading their diseases to other domesticated stuff. Say, for example, you had something that wasn't vaccinated yet, or picked something up they weren't vaccinated for. I mean, that could potentially be an issue if it was a disease that could be transferred.
Yep. Now, we talk about looks like we're being successful on this. I know in some of the areas, especially west of us, and some of the more isolated in some of the places around the lakes, Corps of Engineer ground and stuff, they have been very successful in focusing efforts on those things, and pretty much eliminated those hogs and then move on to different ones. And so now there is really an emphasis, as I understand it, here in this Ozark region to address this thing. And we need, as you said, what we really need is help from all those landowners who have some hogs. Let's get rid of these things.
Yeah, the southwest region of the state is probably in the better shape of if you compare southwest versus southeast versus north of I-44. There's not a whole lot of activity up there, but southwest Missouri is in really, from what I've been told, is doing really well. Southeast Missouri, we're still battling. The numbers are definitely down, as I talked about earlier. I mean, we're not getting near the reports, and the sounders that we do catch are a lot smaller in size. But again, we have to keep up the good fight, because obviously if we don't stay on top of this, that could all change, and we could be seeing 12,000 hogs a year again getting trapped because they could repopulate. So right now, as of this year, I think we're going to be north of 9,000 hogs killed, versus historically last year was 12. And so now this year we're at 9. Same trapping efforts we had this year. Nothing changed, but the numbers are down. So to me, that says we're headed in the right direction.
Yep.
Now, I wanted to bring up, too, what we're doing from a strategy standpoint with our partnership and the number of trappers we have. I think we're right around 40 trappers statewide between our partnership folks. Now, Missouri Department of Conservation, who I just came from employment with them, we hired 7 new people back in September, October timeframe, and they just came on board and started this week. So MDC now is going to have a staff of, once they get everybody on board, they'll have a staff of around 16. And then, of course, your USDA folks, National Park Service, and LAD Foundation, and the other partners we have, they're going to be, roughly around 20 to 30 folks. So we've got staff.
You mentioned National Park Service. That is a problem also on the southern end of the county and down Shannon County, on down through there.
Yep.
Hogs on the National Park Service ground, but they are a part of the partnership and dedicated to trying to address this thing.
Yeah, not to include everybody, but I'll just hit the ones that come off the top of my head here. We've got, of course, the Missouri Department of Conservation. We've got MU Extension. We've got the National Park Service, U.S. Forest Service, USDA, APHIS Wildlife Services, the LAD Foundation, Pioneer Forest, state parks. These are all folks that are working on the feral hog issues with us. So it's a pretty big partnership of different agencies and private entities as well.
And you mentioned state parks. I know from what I've heard, the state park over at Johnson Shut-ins, they've had a lot of impact with hogs and battling them on down towards Wapapella. Reynolds County, Iron County, Bollinger County, Wayne County, all over in there, they're a much bigger problem even than what we've seen so far.
Yes, southeast of here is what we're mainly looking at for larger numbers. Now we've got some up around Fort Leonard Wood, Pulaski County, up in that area too, along the Piney River. But the bigger numbers that we're seeing are southeast of us. So that's where the densities are higher. Lower densities up this way, higher densities southeast.
Some Crawford. What are the areas that you're assigned to work? But I know it's not set, but you have certain counties that you're assigned to.
Yeah, my primary 4 counties right now are Dent, Crawford, Shannon, and Reynolds. Not to say that won't change, or I can kind of help out in other areas that are close by, which very well could happen. But the 4 primary counties I'm assigned to right now are those 4.
So if we're going to be successful in getting rid of hogs in Dent County and keeping them out, then we need also then those landowners in Crawford, Reynolds, and Shannon around us. And then also then west of us. As I say, I know there's some over west of Edgar Springs in that area in there. You say the Piney River and over towards Fort Wood.
And mentioning those counties you brought up, I'll say this as well. When MU Extension hired the outreach educators, there were 4 of those positions. There's myself here in this area. We're going to have a guy assigned, I think, over in the Houston area, and then we're going to have someone in Ava, and then we've got one person over in Ironton. So those are the 4 communities that'll have an actual MU outreach educator in this position.
And you mentioned Ironton. You got Viburnum over in Iron County. And actually over at Viburnum Golf Course, hogs have just tore their golf course up at times, haven't they?
It's interesting you should say that. Yeah. That was one of my first hog assignments was Viburnum Golf Course. With,
Isn't that something?
With the golf course over there last year, and we took out around 10 to 13 hogs over there at the golf course, but they had made quite a mess of it for sure.
You know, a friend of mine is a commissioner over in Cape Girardeau County, and he went deer hunting. He hadn't deer hunted a lot, but some friends talked him into doing some deer hunting, and they went out and done some scouting where they were going to go. And he mentioned to me, he said, this was 2 or 3 years ago, and it was over this direction, just over in the county next to Cape Girardeau County. But at any rate, he was telling me they were going to their deer stand, and it was dark. They hadn't been over in the area scouting for 2 or 3 weeks, and they were walking to it. But he said they was walking across this field to get to their stand, and he said they kept kind of stumbling around. And I said, it was like, he said, what the heck, did they plow this field? And he said, and the guy that was with him who knew the area and was taking it, he said, no, he says, it's them so-and-so hogs. And that hogs had descended on the field, and he said, just tore the field all to pieces. And he just had no idea. But I had Deputy Director Aaron Jeffries, has worked on the hog thing, and so I asked him to speak to our County Commission Association State Board of Directors, which is made up of commissioners from all over the state here. A few years ago at a meeting we had over at Cape Girardeau, and then he spoke again this last year or this past summer down at Echo Bluff at a meeting we had. But commissioners from all other parts of the state, especially north of the river, these commissioners had no idea. But Aaron Jeffries showed a lot of the pictures of these fields and what had been happened, what had done, and then kind of what's happened here as they've spread and so on. And I can tell you, when it was over, these commissioners on North Missouri and all of them, they were fully on board. Whatever it takes, said, let's get rid of these things. They said they don't want them swimming the river. I said, don't worry, they won't be swimming. They'll, because we know that's been a problem. People taking hogs and hauling them and dumping them out in areas where they want to establish. I mean, we have people, I won't say on the air what my definition of them people would be, but people that will load hogs up and take them to some place and turn them out so they can have a hunting population. And there's money being made off hunting hogs and all kinds of things. But at any rate, some of those things aren't very helpful.
Yeah, for sure. Obviously, most folks probably know that there were laws created that increased the penalties for that and made the charging more serious.
Some of those were passed just this last year.
Just last year, yeah. So that is out there on the books now. But obviously, we hope it doesn't come to that with anybody. I mean, I come from a law enforcement background, with the Park Service and the State Patrol, but we don't want folks to get in trouble for stuff like that. We just hope they make the right decision for the right reasons, and that's kind of what I grew up with, as a motto of what I was taught growing up as a kid in Shannon County is do the right thing for the right reasons.
That's right.
And hopefully folks realize that it could lead to folks having a lot of monetary damage to their property, and then the time and effort it takes to fix it. And we're hopeful that folks just say, hey, it's just not worth it because we're going to be hurting our neighbors, and we don't need that for anybody because we had a bunch of property damage. Now their cattle operation is going to suffer, their hay operation, whatever the case may be. And I know nobody intends for that to happen, but it's a collateral issue if someone goes out and actually hopefully would not do this, but if they do intentionally release hogs onto the landscape, which could happen, we could potentially be dealing with now. We've got a landowner next door where they released them at that's going to have all this damage, and we just don't need to deal with that. I mean, nobody wants that kind of problem, so hopefully folks aren't going to do that. It's my hope anyway.
Let me ask you a question. I mean, obviously, Missouri Department of Conservation Extension, we all recognize the problem here in Missouri, but this is not just in Missouri.
Nope.
It's in Arkansas. It's down. I know it's in Texas a lot. We were down in Texas. They were complaining about it as well. Are those states doing the same thing? Because it wouldn't do Missouri any good to eradicate every single feral hog in Missouri if they're going to be running rampant in Arkansas.
And that's one thing I can tell you, that every state has a different management plan. Our plan is probably a little different than their plans down there, and I'm not familiar with what their plans are. I do hear a lot of people talking about going to other states to do hog hunting, and they do ground hunts, they do aerial hunts. There's a lot of different things that they pay to go do down in some of these other states. And again, I'm not familiar with what their management strategies are, but I can speak obviously to the one here, and that's we want to eradicate them. Because we just have too much property damage going on with hay fields and farms and such as that, and we want to make sure we do the best we can to eliminate them here. But these other states, you're right, if they aren't doing what we're doing, they could still keep migrating up this way.
Yeah, we can take care of them all, and then 2 years later they can be back.
There's that potential for sure. Yeah.
I know private landowners in some other states are really watching what Missouri's taken a much more aggressive approach from the standpoint of wanting to do an eradication. And I know some private landowner groups in other states are watching this and hoping and rooting Missouri on, and hoping that if it happens, they're going to really be working on their agencies to try to go that direction too. But it's going to be a long old road, long haul. This is a 3-year program. Correct me if I'm wrong. A 3-year program right here on this thing right now. We won't be rid of all the feral hogs in 3 years. I know that.
Yeah, these 4 positions we hired with MU Extension, they are 3-year term positions, which could be subject to extension if they want to make them longer, but they're a 3-year term position. Now, the trapping positions that we picked up with MDC back in October, those 7 they hired, those are also term positions. So they're anticipating 3 years, and they're hoping they can have this, some kind of a handle on this to where it's going to go into more of a monitoring phase, I think is the hope. And we'll have to see what happens in 3 years. But I didn't mention this earlier, but the 7 we hired, we've also got 3 more vacancies that the MDC is going to hire for those as well at some point here in the near future. So we'll have a total of 10 new trappers plus the 6 supervisors. So they'll have the total of 16 at that point with MDC plus the APHIS wildlife people and the other agencies in the partnership. But at this point, we're looking at trying to get the numbers down as much as we can and see what kind of success we have. And I think the key to that is just comparing this year to last year. As I mentioned earlier, 12,000 hogs last year. This year we're at 9. We didn't change any of our trapping operations as far as reducing numbers, as far as trappers are concerned or anything like that. We had the same number of folks on the ground, but yet the numbers of hogs went down as what we're looking at this point.
And the number of requests for assistance from some landowners went down.
Yes.
So that's a good sign. That's a real good sign. Glad
it doesn't say we're out of the woods yet.
All right.
But I think we're headed in the right direction.
Yeah. Yeah.
You got to turn that corner.
Right.
Because for a while we were just breaking even. And breaking even doesn't do you any good.
Yeah. And I was going to mention as well, there's a lot of questions about the trapping versus, going out and actually, shooting at them or hunting them. And obviously the trapping is what we prefer, just because the fact of the matter is that, you can get more hogs at one time. If you go out there and you come upon a sounder in the woods and you start firing rounds at them, you might hit 1 or 2 of them, but the likelihood is you're just going to scatter them, and then they're going to move on to some other person's property a mile or 2 away, and now we got to relocate them. So the trapping is what we prefer, and I think we've kind of preached that message from the beginning of the eradication and elimination program, just because we can get 10 hogs at a time versus 1 or 2. So I think
there's been a lot of them. MDC and the Forest Service put in a deal of banning hunting on their lands of hogs.
Yeah, all the public lands. Yep.
Yep. And for that very reason you're talking about, and especially where if you were already in there trying to do some trapping, people coming in and shooting hogs periodically, or even worse, finding where you got a trap and then interfering with your trapping efforts and shooting some hogs around the trap and in the trap.
I'll speak to that. I had a trap. I won't say where it was at, but I had a trap last year that I'd already caught several hogs out of it. and I was doing my job, catching hogs, which I was getting paid by the taxpayers to do. Somebody came into my trap site, which is very well hidden, off the road. No way really to find it unless you're out there just maybe looking for it. Maybe somebody stumbled upon it. I don't know. But anyway, they found it. And the traps have 4 big wrought iron support bars that support the trap. We run a cable across the top through a pulley. And they took all 4 of my support arms off that trap. And so we had to go refabricate 4 support arms, which didn't take long to do. I mean, it took me.
They carried them out.
They carried them out, took them for themselves, or I don't know what they would have done with them, but they took them. So anyway, that trap was basically out of commission until we got the new pieces refabricated for it. But it's like, well, I guess they didn't want me trapping hogs here anymore. And it was on federal ground where I was at, but it obviously had to stop, take time to deal with that. And taxpayer dollars had to go refabricate more pieces now. Sure. So that was frustrating. I'll just say that. It was frustrating, to say the least.
Yeah. Well, there's low lives in our society that, unfortunately, we have to deal with. Well, that's about as nice as we can refer to them by. So, anyway. I'm really, really glad to see you here, and proud of Extension and working on this cooperative deal and MDC. You give them a pat on the back for doing this work with Extension, and because Extension, of course, gets out already anyway with their livestock special and all the various things. So it's a real good fit, I think, and a good move. And I know commissioners, not all, but most commissioners, I think, across the state are pretty supportive of seeing this hog thing be successful. I think anyway, we really commend you for the work you're doing, and I really appreciate your job.
Well, and I'll say this too, but kind of touching on what you were mentioning, since I come from a law enforcement background, I've run into plenty of folks that don't agree with everything I did when I was in law enforcement or law enforcement, what they do in general with their jobs, whatever type of law enforcement they be doing, from wildlife management, resource management, traffic, enforcement, police work in general. I mean, whatever the case may be, and not everybody's going to agree with everything that a person that is making those decisions is doing, and or that agency is doing. And unfortunately, that's just the cost of doing business sometimes. But we have to do what's in the best interest of the society that we serve. And I think that's kind of where we're at with this hog issue. Is we're just trying to do the best we can for the people that we serve, and that's what this is. This is a customer service. If you really break this down to the nuts and bolts of what we're talking about here, this is just serving the people that pay their taxes. We're trying to help folks out however we can with this hog issue, because guess what? All of us as taxpayers paid for this, and they're just seeing this come back to them with trying to help deal with this problem, because that's what it is. It's a problem. It's not a good thing to have this issue out there on the landscape. So these hogs are a problem, and we're trying to help folks with that. So I guess I would say that just put that out there for folks to think about, is that this is a service provided by all these people in the partnership, all these agencies, and even the Pioneer Force folks and the Ladd Foundation. They've got big property holdings too, and they're trying to help with this as well. So I think that if somebody wants to take away from this, it's that we're trying to provide a service to folks, because if we don't, who's going to do it? If we don't do this, who's going to do it?
That's right. And you're just trying to address a problem that had been growing exponentially over the years. And it sounds like maybe some headway, making some headway, and we can gain a lot more headway with everybody's helping, everybody working together. We can, individual. I mean, I'll be honest. If I'm sitting in my deer blind, and a feral hog goes walking across the field in front of me out of my property, and it's perfectly legal. Anybody can shoot a hog on their property.
That is correct.
Go for it. And I'll probably shoot that son of a gun.
You bet.
But in the bigger picture, I understand the whole deal, that if there's a bunch of them there, and if I know that, I might not shoot him. It'll be very hard not to shoot that rascal. But in the bigger picture, I know, though, you're going to be better off if you can get a whole bunch of them trapped at one time. And and that's the goal in this thing. And, MDC, I give them credit. MDC's interest in this has to do with the wildlife conservation and so forth. And these things are an absolute negative for wildlife and conservation efforts and things, let alone the impact on people, farming operations, and so on. So we need to work together on this. And
I think that's a great point, Darrell. I think if people think about it in terms of who are we helping and what are we helping? Who are we helping are the landowners.
That's right.
People.
Yeah.
We're helping people. And then as far as the other component, the two-pronged approach, the other component we're doing is we're helping the ecosystem / wildlife. We're saving, fields, woodlands, competition species with the hogs for the food sources. So those are the two that, when I think about this and what we're trying to accomplish, we're helping people and we're helping the wildlife / the ecosystem, the environment, the resource, however you want to word it. But those are the two things that we got to think about. Why are we doing this and what's the purpose? Well, there it is. That's what it's about.
I often think that people who are not affected by this, then they get pretty ignorant about what it is that's actually happening and what these hogs are doing, because you can talk to people in St. Louis and stuff, and they don't know anything about it. And what's the big deal? They're just wasting money. They're throwing money at something. We don't need to be wasting that money. And I said, okay, do you like to eat? And they said, yeah. Well, I said, well, that's all cattle country, and if all that hay is gone, you're not going to eat, or you're going to be paying 3 times the cost for it. I said, it all affects all of us, but it's just not affecting you directly, so you don't know. And I'm sure you came across that in law enforcement. I'm not doing anything wrong. Well, yeah, you are doing this against the law, but you may not be. You're probably ignorant of that law. Well, we all do stuff that might be some minor violation here or there. But when you take a stand on it, and these people that take a stand say, this is just all wrong, you got to listen to both sides. And unfortunately, most people don't. They hear one side of it, and they take their stand, and they say, that's it. We're not going to do it. Or that's it. It's going to do it that way. I think people need to see both sides of it. But in this case, there's nothing good about the feral hogs and the damage they're doing to anybody, whether it be food sources, people's personal property, we'll say Forest Service land, National Park Service land. If you want to take your kids out and enjoy lands and you got feral hogs that dig it all up, you made a plan for that weekend, you've been looking forward to it, and you go out there and the whole field's ruined.
Yeah.
Who's benefiting from this?
Agriculture is the number one industry in the state. I don't
who
think there's any
benefits from
arguing
this?
that.
So-
Tourism, I always say tourism a close second. Now they'll argue that back and forth, but overall, and especially if you take under agriculture, that timber falls under that as well. There's no doubting.
But I truly believe education is the key here.
Absolutely.
And I mean, Darrell said this a long time ago when the feral hog issue first came up. These people need to learn about this because they don't know about it, and they're just saying it's not a big deal. Brush it off. It'll go away.
Well, that's why commissioners from even North Missouri, once they seen and heard, actually really seen and heard what was going on. Oh yeah, they jumped on board because they understand.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Once you've been out there and you know somebody that's been affected by it, that tends to change your view, I think. And I've heard that from folks. Yeah, I didn't realize that this is what was happening. So I'll give you an example. One of the properties I was working over around Boss, another guy from MDC took that over once I left MDC to come to this position. He sent me a video yesterday or the day before of that property where the hogs have now come back in.
Yep.
And it looked like a disc had gone through that field. And this guy runs cattle.
Except actually a disc, it'd be smoother.
It'd be smoother with a disc, yeah.
They're just plowed up.
But it was acres of just torn up field.
And it's just sickening.
Yeah. And he's a cattle operator, so now he's going to have to deal with fixing that. And that's one of the things we're doing, too. We're trying to put together equipment right now to help folks if they need it. And a lot of these guys have their own stuff, but if someone were to need a harrow or a road disc or whatever they may need to kind of go back in and fix this back up, we're going to actually start coming up with some of that equipment, too, hopefully in the next few months.
That's great.
With through the MDC folks, they're going to try to purchase some equipment that are going to help landowners with that. And they're trying to figure out what package exactly they're going to get and what equipment they're going to buy, but they're looking at buying some good stuff to help folks with their field damage.
But I noticed one thing, and I'll shut my mouth after this. But I'm part of the media, and I always say sometimes media is really good, sometimes media is really bad. In everything that I've looked at, very little media attention has been focused on feral hog damage. They've talked a little bit about it. You've heard about some meetings about it, but I've not seen any media coverage of feral hog damage yet, to date, that has been visual, that I have seen on any major news source yet.
Yeah, there's not been much pictures of fields like you're talking about videos.
So people just don't think it's really a big problem.
Yeah.
I really admire some things the Department of Conservation has done with the Gypsy Moth, and trying to figure out how we can stop it from spreading. And they've done a good job in eradicating some of these and trying to warn people, hey, if you're traveling from up east and you come in, you got a nest on your car, it can build up on your van. You may not even know it, but you're going to bring it in here, and then when they get loose, they're here. Yeah. And you can't do anything about it. Then they spread, then they reproduce. Now you've got a problem. So, I really appreciate the efforts that they try. You're not going to get everybody on board, But boy, when you don't see any coverage of a problem that something can happen, the things that we see that happen with like fire ants and things of that nature. I was down in Texas, and they were talking about the fire ants down there. Well, have you ever encountered a fire ant? If somebody said, well, it's not a big deal. You get 1,000 fire ants on you, you're going to think it's a big deal. And they swarm, and people don't understand. We don't have them here, but they're moving this way. And so people need to think twice about just blowing something off because they're not educated about it until you get finally to a situation where it's out of control. Now it's going to get media attention, and we got to do something right now about it. Well, had we prevented it 3 years ago, we possibly could have controlled it. And I think right now, I like what the Department of Conservation has done here, because this is not a high media area. The areas that are being affected, they're not big media areas. They're not St. Louis. They're not Springfield. They're not Columbia. And they don't get the media attention that this damage deserves, but it's not getting.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And that's truthful.
Appreciate it, Kevin. Appreciate you coming in
glad to be
again.
here.
If somebody's got feral, they think they even suspect they have feral, you'd be willing to you'll meet with them and go take
Yes.
a look and see,
Yep.
or if they know somebody.
In fact, I just met with one of the MDC guy that took my spot. He transferred in from southeast to here. He came in and transferred into my position, and I actually took him out to a property I had just looked at before I left MDC and got him out there with his new person and got him started on that just a couple of days ago. So yeah, any hog damage, or if somebody wants some help with hogs on their property, I'm just be more than glad to help folks out with. And the best way to get me is through the extension office, and that was
729-3196.
Yep, and then they can get a hold of me, and they can certainly point me in the right direction from there, and I'll get out to their place and help them out.
Or your other contact information is
the preferred number is the one at the extension office.
3196.
Probably out in the fields where you can't get.
Yeah, they usually call me and say, "Hey, we just got a phone call from so and so. They need to talk to you." So
Yep.
Very good. Well, we really appreciate the work that you're doing and trapping beforehand, and now the job you're doing now. And if anybody suspects that they have hog damage, they should get in touch. You don't wait and say, "Well, I'm not sure what that is." Find out what that is. That's what the extension's so good for.
And the one thing I would mention too, as we close out here, I would say that a lot of folks know other people in the area, and if a person doesn't really know kind of what we're about or what we're doing, ask somebody that has worked with us. Mm-hmm. Ask another landowner what their perception is of MDC or extension and how we helped them, hopefully helped them. And if they had a good or bad experience with us. I'm not afraid to put that out there, because I would venture to say that folks that we've worked with generally had a good experience with the trapping efforts. So I would just say, if you have hesitations, talk to someone that's worked with us and ask them their opinion.
I've talked to some that have worked with Indians in trapping, and they're very, very happy with results, and they are committed to continuing the effort.
And I will say, just on knowing the folks that are doing the trapping from the MDC side, I know some of the folks from the USDA, but primarily I know all the folks that are doing the MDC stuff. They're just folks that want to help out. They just want to help resolve these issues.
Well, most of them are native Missourians.
Oh, yeah.
Grew up somewhere here pretty like yourself.
Yep.
And actually see what's happening, and really just are dedicated from a public service part of get this done.
And for me, I didn't say this earlier, but tying back to my roots, my grandfather had an Angus operation down in Texas County, and that's had the hay fields and the cattle and the same stuff we're talking about here. So that kind of ties me back to home as well, because I know what he would have been dealing with today if he had this problem to deal with when I was growing up. But it's home for me now, and I just want to make sure folks know that we can help them if they allow us to. But it has to be that, hey, you got to open the door for us to come in.
Yeah.
Well,
something about the Ozarks, you can't get anywhere
I know.
else.
It is. It's home. So
You can take the boy out of the Ozarks, but you can't take the Ozark out of the boy.
that's it.
Yep.
That's
There
it.
you go.
Yep.
Kevin, thank you for coming in.
Glad to be here.
Appreciate you very much, and the work you do. Appreciate
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yep. Thanks very much for coming in. Appreciate it. And,
So if
welcome
you need
welcome
to
back
go,
home.
You can. Darrell and I will talk county business, or you can
Yep.
stay. Either one.
Yep. Well, thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
Appreciate you, sir.
Very good.
Thank you.
Again, thanks a bunch.
All right.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
We'll be in touch.
Yep.
Yeah, keep us updated a little bit as progress goes along. If there's anything we can do, the commission can do to help in this effort, let us know.
Yeah, I'll try not to bother you too much, but same to you. If you need something from me or you hear something going on,
Yeah.
I know right now the biggest thing is we're going to try to have that meeting next week over in Sligo. The folks in Boss are pretty much all on board.
Yep.
They've all got their form. Well, not all of them, but several have their forms. I've made contact with them. So
Okay.
Very good.
thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right.
All right.
Very good. Kevin Kreider, and we appreciate Kevin, and that's not going to be an easy job. But
Right.
we really
He's
appreciate
a new,
him coming on board.
new extension outreach educator. I call it the feral hog coordinator.
There you
but
go.
anyway,
That'll
sure.
work.
So anyway, do appreciate and glad Kevin and his wife have moved back here, moved back home. So look forward to seeing more progress on this feral hog issue. People have heard me rail about it and for the last few years, and at first some people didn't really seem to understand what I was even talking about or why it was an issue. But it's been a problem, and I'm glad to see hopefully some efforts or some gains being made in the effort to fight these things. So anyway, got a lot of other stuff going on too.
Yeah, we do. You want to go over the cart
Yep,
tax?
I've got to get to a meeting here after a while.
you better
story of my
hustle.
life.
Let's do cart tax.
Well, yeah. Road and Bridge, as people have heard me talk about before, we have CART. That's a County Aid Road Trust Fund. That is part of your fuel tax and vehicle sales tax and things. It goes into a fund. Part of that comes back to counties and cities. I think we budget somewhere around $675,000 or so a year for that, and we do monitor that. It comes in every month. So for our November, our sales tax was up about $4,900 over November. CART, what'd I say?
Sales.
Sales, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, CART. It comes in the end of the month is when CART comes in. Sales tax comes in the first of the month part. So anyway, our CART tax.
Hope.
Yeah, that's a whole other story. Anyway, our November CART was up about $4,900 over November 20. It's been up pretty much every month all this year. It's actually up about year to date, up about $53,000 over 2020, which 2020 is when COVID first took off and everything kind of the government tried to shut down and everything was kind of out of whack. So we really did expect it to be a little higher this year, and it's going to be so. But it's up about 8.7%. And as talking to commissioners, we're kind of seeing that across the state. The CART tax being up, but that's good news there. So,
but it's a good thing because of the situation with Road and Bridge and the sales tax.
Right, exactly. Especially this year because of the Department of Revenue mistake and what that's done to us on sales tax and is going to continue to do to us for a time until we get that all ironed out with Department of Revenue.
Right.
And anyway, on that issue, people have heard me talk about it, but Department of Revenue made a mistake with a large entity for years and years and years ago, resulting in sales tax payments being made to the county that should not have been made, and so Department of Revenue has been working on that, and the entity working on that. So anyway, they withheld $1,005,000 from us here at the first of the year, and we've got almost another $1 million they've identified, and we are, excuse me, we are working. It does kind of choke me up even talk about it. Yeah.
grab some water on that one. You may have to drown.
So anyway, but that's an ongoing deal. Luckily, we were in a financial good enough position we could absorb that, and we'll work this out, and they'll spread this pain out over several months or several years if we can on the other withholding. Just a little less than another $1 million they've identified, but there's several more years that they got to go back and account for. So this is a deal, and it's going to be a tough. We're getting ready to enter budgeting for the county here in January, and at this I do want to mention this. Anybody that's got any invoices or things, be sure and get those into us here in December as soon as you can. We will hold a commission meeting just the day before New Year's Eve and get the last bills paid, because all through January we won't be able to pay any bills in January until we get a new budget put together and approved. And I think we have a budget here, and we've already scheduled that for January 27th at 10 a.m. So once that budget's approved, then we can get in and pay bills. So we pay bills every week and try to keep our bills current, paid, up to date, and never
that's by law. You can't. It's not
no,
your
that's
choice.
by law. No,
Yeah.
by law we can't pay bills until the budget is the new budget has been approved. So anyway, the CART funds are up, and was glad to see that.
Very, very good.
Other than that, and
you attended, all the commissioners attended, and the county clerk did.
the
MAC,
treasurer,
Yep.
county treasurer,
And
did
county treasurer
attended the MAC, Missouri Association of Counties annual meeting at Lake of
That's
the
why
Ozarks.
there was no commissioner meeting on that one Monday.
That's right. And that's an annual event. Was canceled last year because of COVID. And this year, I think they had near record or record turnout for it this year. And just so folks understand, I mean, that MAC meeting, of course, this year's was a little extra special with it being the 50th anniversary. They had several presidents of MAC, Missouri Association of Counties, from previous years come in and were recognized. But it's an involved. We went up on Sunday, November 21st, Sunday morning. We actually had a MAC board meeting that I was on the board being president of the County Commission Association, that put me automatically on the Missouri Association of Counties Board of Directors. Had a meeting at 11 o'clock on Sunday morning. Then we had a County Commission Association of Missouri Board meeting then at noon, and then it proceeds on then with County Commission Association annual meeting. Actually itself takes place that afternoon, and we elect new officers and so on. So my term as president of the County Commission Association ended at the MAC meeting, and Tim Brinker, presiding commissioner of Franklin County, is the new president of the County Commission Association.
Keep it in our area, though.
Yep. So I'm still on the board as past president on executive committee. But at any rate, the MAC conference is a great conference, and there's all manner of things. We have breakout sessions on Monday morning. On Monday afternoon, we had a fantastic motivational speaker speak on Monday to the entire group. He was a Captain Chad Fleming. He was a highly decorated Army officer from the Army Ranger Regiment. He was wounded in battle, lost his leg, was amputated, but then below his knee. And then after his amputation, he was redeployed to combat missions 5 more times. What? 5 more times, yep, after his leg was amputated, being one of the few amputees who was able to redeploy into combat and lead his units.
Never heard of that.
Yep. He's pretty. You can see he's pretty. He's pretty wired and pretty wiry, and he's pretty enthused. But he gave a great talk about preparing your mind for success, and dealing with challenges and things. And which, if anybody could speak to that, he certainly could. And so it was great. We had speakers from the Department of Revenue speak to us about Wayfair legislation that was passed. But I got a chance to visit with that individual one-on-one outside about the problem that we've had and what going forward, some things what we might look at, and some remedies and things to talk about. And
he was probably unaware of your issue, though, right?
Actually, no, he was very aware. He said they were off to the side there, didn't have any direct involvement at this point in it, but was very aware of this situation, and very sympathetic to our issue from our perspective, and so on. So anyway, we had, like I say, we had these breakout sessions. The Missouri Association of Counties has created a new award to award people for outstanding achievement. It's called the Juanita Donahue Lifetime Achievement Award, and the very first recipient of that was our own U.S. Senator Roy Blunt, and he was in attendance and came and was presented this award for outstanding achievement on behalf of counties and local government. Governor Mike Parsons spoke to our association on Tuesday morning, and of course Senator Parsons, being a former county official, and understands and feels right at home with a group of county officials that are meeting, so does well. We also had the National Association of Counties Executive Director there to speak to the group about the work that's been done on ARPA and ARPA funding and legislation that's pending now that will actually streamline processes a little bit and free us up a little bit more on what these ARPA funds can be spent for. So, and then the General Counsel, Travis Elliott, talked then about some various legal issues for counties and to think about in various means. So overall, it's a very, very good program. We have breakout sessions on cybersecurity, on TIFs, on expanding broadband, online tax auctions, local health issues, working with Office of State Courts Administration, alternative energy sources, investment programs, elections. That's it. It's held at, and I hate the name of this place, Margaritaville Resort is where it's at. It used to be Tantera, and it was bought out, and now it's Margaritaville Resort. But it's held there because that's one of the few places that can handle it. There was probably between 500 and 600 county elected officials at this thing, and it's one of the few places that can handle that many people, and in the meeting rooms and in the large area. Has an outstanding trade show, industry-wide trade show, then going on at the same time, and a lot of activities down there where you can see vendors and talk about what they have and so forth. So busy time, and that was where Commissioner Larson, Purcell, and I, County Clerk Angie Curley, and County Treasurer Danita Williams were at.
I think you had Wes Mowbray in there instead of Purcell.
I'm sorry, Wes. If you're listening, and I know Wes catches our program a good bit. Yes, man, yeah. First District Commissioner Wes Mowbray, Second District Commissioner Gary Larson, and then County Clerk Angie Curley and Treasurer Danita
You're
Williams.
flashing back, Darrell.
Yeah, yeah. So anyway,
But no, I understand.
trying to cover.
I know you got to get somewhere.
Well, I didn't have that in my notes. So.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Ozark River Solid Waste Management District annual meeting.
yes, that was that's another one I attended this week. Every year, the Ozark River Solid Waste Management District has an annual dinner and awards banquet. And what we do is each year we nominate some people for waste reduction recycling awards that are in our areas. I was very happy to be able to nominate Lori Cody, who's a park specialist for the Montauk State Park. And I nominated her to receive an award in recognition for implementing a campsite recycling program at Montauk State Park. And and it's really took off, been very well received by campers. Really appreciate the opportunity. They put bags up for plastics
Water
and
bottles,
cans and
everything,
different
yeah.
things, stuff to go in, and then they take those and get those hauled to appropriate recycling facilities. It's been very well received and actually being modeled in other state parks now around the state and held up as an example. But I think we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I think we had 9 different deals that we gave awards to. This one was under public employees. We had the Marys County Soil and Water District we gave an award to, and just different ones. The Soil and Water District, what they've done is they've really worked hard at reusing hundreds of these huge machinery tires and reuse them as livestock watering tanks. And there's just no good use for all these old earth-moving tires. We're talking about the big earth movers. And they're able to take those and set them up, run the plumbing to them, and they make a great. They're black, so they hold heat.
Right.
They're much less prone to freeze.
And they're deep.
Oh, yeah, and you set them down in the ground somewhat, concrete the bottom of them so they hold, and put an overflow pipe in them, so if it's cold weather, you can actually set the float for it to just overflow a little bit into a pipe and be freeze-proof that way. And again, being black, they absorb heat.
Right.
Any heat at all they absorb, and it keeps them. So they've reused. They kind of got this started in this area back several years ago, and got several of them, so they got an award. So anyway, a lot of different entities and individuals that we recognize for their efforts, and really enjoyed the program. But congratulations to Lori Cody and Montauk State Park here for
Amazing what a little bit of imagination can do, right?
That's right. A little bit of imagination, a little bit of elbow grease goes a long way. So I was
Wonder what I could do with that big tire.
Yeah. Well, and they talked about how they got started with that, but it actually started because, and I know him real well, Jerry Welshmeyer, used to be co-owner of South Central Livestock Market. He had a spring, a natural spring on his property up on the hillside, and years ago a little bit of a spring box had been made around it, and they'd put a pipe in there and made a box there for water to gather in to make some watering deal, but then it just overflowed and made a wet spot then all down the hillside.
Oh, wow.
And he actually said he happened to be over the farm, and so the idea originated, I guess, on somebody's farm over by Highgate, and he seen they'd taken just a tractor tire and set it in the ground and had a pipe running in the side of it there and let this tractor tire fill up with water, and then it would flow out. But he got to thinking about it, so with the Soil and Water District, they got thinking about it some more, and he contacted the folks up at Twee House Excavating at Jeff City. He had a brother that worked there, and said, they had hundreds of these doggone tires scattered across the hillside if he wanted some. So he took a couple of them, brought down, and they put their heads together and kind of experimented a little bit. And so what he did was he ran a pipe from where his spring box was, ran a pipe underground a little down the hill a ways to come up underneath this tire, put an overflow pipe in that, and then ran that pipe then down underground to take that water on down the hill further to another tire. And he set those up, and he diverted that water and eliminated the wet spot on the hillside, and the ground tore up. And
provided water in different areas.
But made two more year-round watering spots and diverted the water then on down to it. So that's kind of how it all started. Since then, and I have a farm rented where actually there's, I think, 6 of these tire tanks where they're actually on a well.
Seriously?
With a float. And so it's branched out and gone.
Yeah.
There's a lot of these here. There's a lot of them in Dent County as well.
I
But
just have
anyway,
never seen one. But I mean, I can picture it when you're talking about it, and it makes sense.
Yep. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, it makes perfect sense. So great. I mean, you see a lot of concrete waterers, same principle, but they just use these old tires, and it kind of helps on the anti-freeze, avoid the freezing with the black rubber. It absorbs heat.
Warm.
Yep. So anyway, and you get them down in the ground a little bit and stuff, and then get rock and things around them. So works real good. So anyway, that was the Ozark River Solid Waste Management District meeting, and I was real proud to be able to nominate Montauk State Park for that award.
Very good.
Yep. So anyway.
So very good. So that meeting was a success. Okay, so we talked about...
I do want to mention, too, at the MAC meeting, I'm going to go back. At the MAC meeting and the CCAM meeting, one of the things that we do also, though, is we discuss and we adopt a policy resolution, legislative policy and resolutions for the coming year. And some of those, and our County Commission Association and MAC, usually ours kind of mirror each other. The MAC resolutions were for no unfunded mandates. MAC, local government, we're always against the unfunded mandates. State and federal government is great at handing down a decree. You have to do this. There's no money for it, but you got to do it, and it's going to cost you a bunch of money.
Wow.
Where's it come from? There's only so much money in the pot. Local control, we're about local control. We want the control of things to be done locally. One of the things that we've talked about a little bit was do not eliminate the April elections here on the state level. There's talk about eliminating April elections, and frankly, we're very concerned that it will just make things worse for voting in November. Lines will be longer. People will be frustrated. Ballots will be extremely long and difficult. It'd be very difficult to manage from the standpoint of all the different entities that will have different ballots. It'll be as it is, at least right now, you get school board elections, hospital board, municipal elections, all those things taken care of in April. Various tax issues you can put on a ballot, and you can do a better job of explaining those, getting information out. If it's separate from all the rest of the state issues, constitutional amendments would have to be on a November ballot. It could be long.
4 or 5 pages long.
So we're hoping legislators will listen on that. and then the other general one is supporting efforts on broadband expansion across the region. Those were all MAC resolutions. CCAM, our County Commission Association, were very similar. We also add that we support an increase in the state reimbursement for prisoner cost. That's always an ongoing battle. The statute is it can be up to $37 a day, subject to annual appropriation. Annual appropriation hangs around $22 a day. Never does get increased.
They're supposed to give you more money this year.
No, didn't happen.
No, I think
now, actually, they were in arrears. They actually had been approved, and yet had backed up to where they owed counties thousands and hundreds of thousands of dollars. They did get that paid off, I think, very nearly paid off this year. But I do want to mention one other piece of legislation that CCAM is going to be in supportive of and visiting with legislators about was legislation to change the county sheriff's statute in regards to succession of county sheriff, that if something happens at the county sheriff, there's a vacancy as it stands right now in statute, the county coroner takes over as sheriff until
I remember
the commission.
Reading that,
Yeah, and so, and nothing against coroners, it's just we feel that there probably ought to be something put in legislation where a sheriff, upon taking office, has at all times named who the chief deputy is underneath him, that if for some reason he can't fulfill the duties, then the chief deputy can step in, who would obviously be in a better position to know what's going on in the sheriff's office. Sheriffs run the jails, so it would seem to make more sense to us that perhaps than a county
I remember
coroner.
asking a question about that, and the reason I was told it went to the coroner is it had to be an elected official.
Well,
That's what I was told. It had to be an elected official because the sheriff's elected. So if somebody succeeds them, it had to be an elected official. That's what I was told.
Well, that can be worked out in statute at least, that whoever will fulfill those duties at least because see, they would only fulfill that until the commission makes a formal appointment to who's going to step in and be then the county sheriff, who then would be sworn in and so on. So there still just needs to be something better in place. Some counties have run into this where a sheriff was taken out of office or actually was killed in office, and all of a sudden they had a terrible void there for a while. And so anyway, so that's just something, and that would have to be looked at, worked out, the legalities and the statutes and so on. But we just wanted to bring that to the forefront, that needs to be addressed. Yeah. So anyway,
I do remember that. I don't know why I remember that. I was reading that somewhere, and I asked that question. They said, well, to succeed, it had to be an elected official immediately. And then the commission would then appoint somebody, and then the governor would have to approve the appointment.
Right. Yeah.
So. Anyway, but it was immediate secession.
That can be worked out if they
I'm sure.
dig into
I think it was an easy way of doing it. Just make it easy.
Anyway,
We also had
Otherwise-
a priority set for
yes.
roads in Denton County with MRPC. And
Absolutely.
Preston Kramer from the MoDOT, our engineer that serves our area.
Right. Yeah, Bonnie Prigge
You
from.
didn't write it down, did you?
No, I didn't write those down, but that's okay. I know where we're at here. Bonnie Prigge from MRPC, and they do this every year before a Transportation Advisory Committee meeting in December, where we look at what our highway needs are in the county. Some of them are already that we had identified before. One of them was that we'd identified before was to replace the bridge down across Gladden Creek, down on Highway 19 South. That project actually now is on the statewide STIP, which is the State Transportation Improvement Program. It is actually slated for funding, been allocated for that, or pointed toward that to start in 2023. So there's no point of that being on our list. On our list, what we've come up with is, hope I can remember all these, but we identified three in particular. One of those being, and our top priority being the replacement of the low water crossing on Crooked Creek on Highway TT down at Sligo.
Right.
A little over a year ago, there was a death there on that bridge. It was very unfortunate and very avoidable, and so that remains our top priority. We do understand that the MoDOT has done some work on instituting maybe scoping for that project, but that remained one of our top priorities. One of our other priorities was actually getting a new bridge over the West Fork of the Huzzah out at a Boss. That needs to be addressed. That's
Route B, south of town.
That old bridge out at Boss was built in 1931, so it's 90 years old, and it's and it's very critical for traffic, truck traffic, very critical for all of our people in Dent County that are employed at the mines and those business over in Iron County. Very critical. So we put that on our deal. Right. And then you just mentioned Highway B, south of town, is the main route to the gravel facility, Capital Quarries, where so many large trucks travel Highway B. It's very narrow. There's no shoulders. Over the years, there's been a lot of different accidents, wrecks on it, and it just needs some work. And so we made those our top three. Our fourth priority would be out here at the intersection of Highway 19 and Roosevelt Street, where Roosevelt, up on the hill, the sight lines are terrible, and Roosevelt, of course, goes on down to the upper elementary school. So that is our fourth priority that we'll be taking to the Transportation Advisory Committee.
Start as well the other way.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah, so it gets used. It's very heavily used in the afternoon in traffic trying to enter and exit Highway 19 at that spot. Maybe put some turn lanes, some flashing lights, some warning lights, and some things. We just need to see some things that could be done to improve that.
I know, Preston, the last time we all got together, recommended putting a right-hand turn lane there coming from the south, so that people slowing down to make a right-hand turn would be over and get out of the way.
Already over.
But that's still not going to alleviate a total sight problem. People pulling out of Roosevelt, they still can't see over the hill.
Yeah, and if you're coming up Roosevelt and trying to cross 19 there, it's still a hazard. We need to get traffic.
But you've been to Owensville, right? You've seen that one intersection that they have that's right at that hill that has a big board with a flashing light. If there's a vehicle there and you're coming up on 19, that thing starts flashing to let you know that there's somebody there. Get you aware pretty quick, and if they pull out.
That's right. Yeah, and some of these things, that's why we included it, and we want to bring some emphasis to that issue. And so I will be taking those priorities to the entire Transportation Advisory Committee coming up in December. I believe it's December the 9th is our meeting at MRPC for that. So anyway, I think that catches up to date. I've got a meeting to get to here in just a few minutes. So
I'll let you get
Stan,
going.
I don't know of anything else.
Well, we'll
be back.
We appreciate
Darrell.
Yes, sir. And we appreciate Darrell for coming in, spending time with us. And this program is paid for by Darrell. There's no freebies here. He has to pay for it. He
wrote a check this morning.
I saw him, too.
Yes, sir.
Pretty good. Didn't leave a tip, but it was okay.
Yep,
anyway, we
that's
appreciate Darrell and all the information he brings to you. We appreciate Kevin Kreider coming in and being our special guest today as well, and a big impact we hope that he will have on Denton County.
Look forward to progress on the feral hog issue.
In the meantime, here at KSMO Radio, 1340 AM, I hope you have a great rest of the week. Don't forget the parade, Darrell.
Right. We got the Chamber of Commerce Parade of Lights tomorrow night, and look forward to that. So I do appreciate the opportunity. We'll be back on the 17th, I believe it is. And so until then, I do hope everyone will be safe, happy, healthy. God bless each and every one.